Robinson, who's in the slot. Look in that direction on a slant. Huge hit. Ball picked off. The Volunteers of the Carib make an interception. Jawan Mitchell. They call him Juju.
Discrepancy. Schuster, they were going to take a shot, but he's hit by Nelson. And Nebraska has picked up the football. Their first takeaway of the game.
Wells way down the field. It is into coverage. It is intercepted. It is over. Lamarian James has sealed the victory for Old Dominion. And fittingly, it comes on a takeaway.
Welcome back to Devy IDP Grind. I'm Hollywood, and I'm joined by Choppin and Justice. What's going on, guys?
You go first, Justice.
I'm hearing like everything twice.
I'm not.
Yeah, I just heard you just say tell me to go first again.
Because I don't.
Yeah, that's a Justice froze, right?
I don't know what he's doing.
Yeah, he froze there for like a minute. He's stuck in the matrix. I'm telling you.
Oh, this is.
That's all stuff moved. What is going on?
Oh, this is great. Well, I'm sure he'll try to jump back on here in a minute. So this is great. It's not my fault this time.
Well, it probably is.
Well, it probably is, but yeah.
Yeah, somewhere it probably is.
I'm sure he'll try to rejoin us here in a minute. And there he is again. He's back. Guess who's back? Back again.
Yeah. That was weird.
Yeah. Nope. All good. All good.
I was hearing everything double, and it was like a delay.
Maybe that's how we were talking.
Maybe, yeah. You were like in the Matrix, like you were glitching.
You got to tell Hollywood everything at least twice.
Right.
You got to tell Hollywood everything at least twice.
Funny.
Don't mess with me. Oh my gosh.
See? There goes the Matrix. It's enforcing itself.
Choppy's got a phone call.
Anyway, you got your stuff fixed out?
Yeah, I'm not hearing double anymore.
Okay, good. So episode 62, we're starting to cruise right along now. We'll dig right into the news and notes here. The SEC divided $721.8 million between the 14 schools. Excuse me, for the past fiscal year of 49.9, basically 50 million per team. Excuse me, which is kind of funny because the next one we mentioned on the last podcast that Texas and Oklahoma were headed to the SEC 1 year early, which is in 2024, and that came to fruition when the Sooners and Longhorns agreed to forego their portions of the Big 12 media contracts, which is $50 million each. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
So did they have to pay a penalty too, or they just
similar, but
for some reason I thought they had to pay $100 million, but maybe it was $100 million total, not $100 million each.
I don't know the way I forget where I found this at, but it said, they gave up their portions for the next two seasons for the media rights in the Big 12.
Okay, well there you go. Right, so that would be the $100 million. If it's $50 million a season, then that's the $100 million.
So yeah, so they'll be here, and the SEC. Those numbers just clearly the cash kings of college football, right? I mean, that's insane amount of money for college football, and I expect when Texas and Oklahoma gets here, that's going to shoot through the roof. So
Yep.
Coaching extensions and changes. Mike Norvell got 3 years. Chip Kelly got 2 years. Extensions. Kevin Sumlin was named the co-offensive coordinator for Maryland. And Mike George's new offensive coordinator. Any thoughts on those?
Well, Bobo, wasn't he the offensive coordinator at Georgia like before? Like a couple years, many years ago maybe, but
Yeah, a few years, and then he went to Colorado or something like that.
he was at Colorado State for a few years, right?
Maybe that's what it was in.
Yeah,
and then he came back to maybe like South Carolina or is that right?
I don't remember that. Muschamp.
Yeah, maybe that's who I'm thinking of.
Yeah, he went to South Carolina. Yeah. And then we've had the Under Armour Orlando camp, which was a couple weeks ago. Some of the top performers were Ty Clean Lumen, edge, Xavier Mincy, a safety, Kai Bates, a corner, Sean Savlano, and Jay McCray, a defensive lineman. So those are some high schoolers that are starting to separate themselves from the rest of the pack with good showings.
Are they so they'll be seniors next fall?
Should be seniors next fall, yes. I wonder how much they put into these camps. I mean, far as coaches and stuff like that. I wonder if they put a lot of weight on these camps.
No, well, maybe because
Or,
they affect your recruiting ranking and rating and stuff like that, which I'm sure leads some people probably in recruiting departments look closer to prospects, so it could. Plus word of mouth gets around. I don't know if can coaches send representatives to those or not.
Oh yeah, all the colleges have their own camps, right? So I mean, I think it's a way for them to get more exposure to more kids.
Yeah.
Like ODU, I think, has 3 already planned for the summer.
That pretty much does it for the news and notes. Oh, really?
Yeah, they did them. They've done them for a while. They did them even before Ricky Ronnie was here. They used to do them in conjunction with Penn State.
Okay. Well, that pretty much does it for the news and notes. So for the 5-star topic, we want to touch on the transfer portal, defensive linemen and defensive backs. I saw this today when I was poking around looking for some new stuff. On3 Recruiting reported that there's 1,956 players entered the portal. 1,111 is committed, which is 57%. And then 52 withdrew their name and went back to school, which is 2.66%. So 60%, if you add those last two together, 60% of the players that's in the portal has found a place to play or went back to where they come from. I would like to know of that 1956. I'd like to know what that percentage is of college football, but I'm sure it's a small number in the grand scheme.
And most of them drop down, right? I mean, based on the numbers. I remember we looked at this last year. Most of them, they're all dropping down a level in general.
And isn't there a window fixing to open pretty soon?
In May.
Yeah.
Unless you're a graduate. If you graduated school, you can enter the portal whenever you want. But
okay, just thought that was interesting. So a little over 50%, right? 60% of the players, you've still got 40% out there, which is a pretty good number that's not found a new home. So it tells me, if you're going to enter the portal, you probably need to just jumping the gun and trying to move on, right?
Yeah, and when I doing the research for our topic, like for this week and next week, I don't really remember seeing a lot of what I would consider like big names that haven't already committed.
Right.
Like I don't remember seeing a name and thinking, wonder where he's going to end up. I just don't remember seeing any names like that.
Fixed stars stood out. I mean, it was, as we were doing, like I told you up when I was doing this list, I had to dig for some of these names, and even then, it was kind of, I don't know how really relevant they're going to be, but we'll see. I mean, it may turn out to be something big. I mean, you never know. Sometimes a change of scenery is all it takes. So we'll get started here with the portal. So I've got defensive line and cornerback, for the SEC and the ACC. Like I said, the defensive lineman was really a little harder to find noteworthy players than the defensive backs was. The one defensive tackle that stood out was Justin Rogers. He made a switch from Auburn to Kentucky, 4-star, 7th-ranked defensive tackle, 52-player overall. Big O Hume, 32. I know Kentucky lost some off of their defensive line, so there's a chance that he can step in and play for them right away and maybe make an impact for them.
They lost. Was Wooden a defensive end or a defensive tackle?
Excuse me, what was the question?
Colby Wooden. Hall was a defensive end. I don't remember what Wooden was.
He was more like an outside linebacker, defensive end. He was an edge. Kind of misplaced edge, I think. But really, that was the only major defensive lineman I could find. I mean, it was, like I said, it was really thin. Now you go back to the ACC you go back to defensive backs. You had Fintrell Cypress, who switched from Florida State from Virginia, 3-star, 4 years at Virginia, 18 games, 15 starts, 57 tackles, 40 solos, 15 pass breakups. He was recorded 14 last year, which ranked second in the ACC and 18th overall in the nation. And he was tied for 7th in the NCAA with 1.4 a game. So really active corner. That's a good get for Florida State.
He kind of broke out last year because I think when we did the breakouts, he's one of the guys I mentioned from the ACC.
Yep. I bet if we went back and double cross-referenced your list or our list, I bet a lot of these names would probably be on there maybe. Deuce Chestnut transferred from Syracuse to LSU, and so did Denver Harris. He transferred from Texas A&M to LSU. So LSU really doubled down in the portal on defensive backs. Just as a 5-star, which was kind of interesting. But back to Chestnut, 2 years at Syracuse, 24 games, 83 tackles, 59 solos, 3 TFLs, 4 interceptions, and 13 PBUs. He allowed 4 touchdowns on just 358 pass coverage snaps in 22. So a good little pickup for LSU there. And then Denver Harris, the 5-star. Number 4 corner, 23rd over 2020. Played in 5 games last year as a true freshman for A&M, 14 tackles, 10 solos, 3 PBUs. And then he was suspended indefinitely for violation of team rules. I'm guessing that had some part of the reason for him leaving. And I also kind of think we've talked about it over and over and over, right? Texas A&M with these heavy recruiting classes the last few years. Maybe the depth, he's looking for, he wants one more playing time. So I just wonder how much of this from Texas A&M we're going to see it continue players transferring out. But that's a huge get for LSU.
LSU they did the same thing with defensive backs last year, right? They got the kid from Ohio State. I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but that transferred in and graduated. But
oh yeah, what was his name? I know exactly who you're thinking of, and I can't think of his name. I can't think of his name. And then, speaking of Texas A&M, right? They get a transfer in from North Carolina, Tony Grimes, who a 5-star, number one in the state, 28th overall player in the class of 220. He played 3 years for the Tar Heels, 37 games, 97 tackles, 73 solos, 3.5 TFLs, a sack, a pick, and 20 PBUs and forced fumble. So
7 banks.
I think with them losing, which is a really good young talent, 7 banks, yes, that's who it was. So with them losing Harris, to be able to get a more veteran type player in Tony Grimes, I think that definitely helped them. And then my last defensive back is LaRondo Johnson, transferred from Baylor to Arkansas, 4-star, played 2 years at Baylor, 19 games, 20 tackles, 14 TFLs, or 14 solos, 2 TFLs, 5 PBUs, and a forced fumble. As a sophomore, he only allowed 3.34 yards per coverage snap, and that was the lowest in the nation among cornerbacks. So, like I said, there wasn't a whole lot of defensive tackle or noteworthy defensive linemen and worth looking at, but it seems like the defensive backs for sure in the ACC and SEC, there was a lot of movement there, and I could have actually went on for days about these because there was a lot of defensive back movement, but those were the more noteworthy ones.
It'd be interesting to see, I guess, what Carolina is going to do because they lost both their starters, right? And Grimes and the kid that went to Penn State. You have Storm Duck.
Yep. Both of their starting corners left, so
they're going to have to reload. And didn't they lose a lineman to Kentucky too? I don't think he ain't done anything. Is it Silver? Keyshawn Silver?
Yes.
Yeah, I know he's highly recruited, but he never did anything at Carolina. I know.
Yep. Yeah, he was a 5-star, so yeah, he moved on.
I know there was some, maybe Brock probably remembers better than me, but wasn't there some talk last offseason that LaRondo Johnson was the replacement for Pitre? That never really came to fruition, but
yeah, I think he was like one that they thought would have a shot at it, and so, like you said, it didn't come to fruition.
All right, so I had the Big 12 and the Pac-12. Actually, kind of opposite of Hollywood's problem. I had more edges and defensive linemen than corners that I thought, from an impact perspective. So the first is edge Jordan Birch. He transferred from South Carolina to Oregon. He was a 5-star, number 2 defensive tackle, number 8 overall in the class of 2020. He played for 3 years at South Carolina, 31 games, 105 total tackles, with a high of 60 in 2022, 4.5 sacks, high of 3.5 in 22, 12.5 tackles for loss, 7.5 in 22, and 2 fumble recoveries. I think he's someone that's never really lived up to his expectations or his ranking, right? He had a decent year last year, but nothing that I would say is spectacular. Maybe he can, go to Oregon and Dan Lanning can coach him up and get more production out of him. The next was edge Jordan Dominic. He's from Arkansas. He's transferring to Colorado. He was. This is actually the 3rd time he's transferred, or 2nd time, I guess. His 3rd school. He's a 2-star, number 72 defensive end in the class of 2018. He was at Georgia Tech for 4 years. He was played a year at Arkansas. and now he's transferring to Colorado. He's played in 41 total games with 137 total tackles, a high of 38 tackles in 2021, 16 and a half sacks with 7.5 sacks last year at Arkansas, 27 tackles for loss, 9.5 last year for Arkansas, 4 fumble recoveries and 7 forced fumbles. He's part of the massive transfer portal class that Dion has brought into Colorado in his first year. So, I mean, the Pac-12 is not known for their defense, and Colorado has not been particularly strong. So he's certainly someone that should be able to help them. Next is defensive lineman Rondell Bothroyd. He's from Wake Forest. He's someone that we've talked about several times on the show. He's going to Oklahoma. He's a 3-star, number 66 defensive end, class of 2018. He played 5 years at Wake Forest, played in 42 games, 136 total tackles, 63 of those in 21, 15 and a half sacks, 7 of those in 21, 31 tackles for loss, 16 and a half in 21, 4 fumble recoveries, and 4 forced fumbles. He's someone that I think, after his junior year, or I guess it would have been his redshirt or junior year, and like he got the free COVID year, but so this is a super senior year. But his junior year at Wake Forest, like he had a great year. Last year, he didn't quite put up the same numbers as he did last year. I'm not sure. I don't really remember him being hurt. Not really sure why, but he's definitely someone that should go to Oklahoma. They've lost a few guys the last few years on that defensive line, and I think he's someone that can actually help them out. This next guy is probably someone that until I did the research, I had never heard of. Jack Sullivan, defensive line from USC, or going to USC from Purdue. He's a 3-star, number 64, defensive end, class of 18. He's someone that actually had a fairly decent year last year. He played 4 years at Purdue, 38 games, 86 total tackles, 38 in 22, 9.5 sacks, 5.5 in 2022, 14 tackles for loss, half of those in 2022, and 1 forced fumble. Again, USC needs all the help they can get on defense, and so he's someone that I think can certainly help them. They still have Corey Foreman still there. You laughing at Chop?
Yes, I am. I can't help it.
Corey Foreman's still there. So, but USC retained their defensive coordinator, so I don't know how much improvement you'll see. But I know they've been active in bringing in some defensive help on the portal. The last defensive lineman is Trace Ford from Oklahoma State, going to in-state rival Oklahoma. He was a 3-star, number 26 defensive end, class of 2019. He's someone that really broke out, I guess, in the COVID year, maybe, and the year in his freshman year, but he hasn't done anything since then. He played 3 years at Oklahoma State, 30 games, 59 total tackles, 8.5 sacks, 11.5 tackles for loss, and 3 forced fumbles. He's someone that I know we talked about last year in our conference preview, but he didn't do anything this past year. Hopefully a change of scenery can do him some good. And I would assume he's most likely available on waivers just because it's been 2 years since he's really done anything. On to the cornerbacks. This first one is probably the most interesting in all the list for the conferences I cover, and that's Travis Hunter. He's transferring from Jackson State to Colorado following Deion Sanders. He is a 5-star. He was the number 1 cornerback and number 1 overall player in the class of 22. He played 1 year at Jackson State, 8 games, 20 tackles, 10 pass breakups, 2 interceptions, 1 fumble recovery, and he also plays offense. On offense, he had 18 receptions, 188 yards, and 4 touchdowns. And I do know that he has played some offense in the spring game. I'm not exactly sure what their plans are for him on the offensive side at Colorado. My guess is he's going to continue to play both. I think from an NFL perspective, he's a cornerback and not a receiver as far as that goes. But, he's definitely someone to pay attention to in your C2C supplemental drafts because no one has them yet because they couldn't. Well, in most leagues, don't allow you to draft FCS players. So he's someone that's going to be in your freshman and supplemental drafts, and him playing offense, that's just a bonus, right? Because he's going to score points for you both ways. So, and the last guy I have is a cornerback that transferred from Alabama to Oregon. I assume they needed some additional help after with Christian Gonzalez going off to the NFL. He is a 4-star JUCO corner. He was the number 2 cornerback in the JUCO class of 21. He played 2 years at Alabama. Didn't really do anything noteworthy there. But again, maybe Dan Lanning can coach him up. I think we saw how much that staff's influence, how that helped Christian Gonzalez. So maybe he can have a similar impact on Kyrie Jackson.
All right. So before we get to chops here, that's Hunter, right? So the last year? Was it last year? So you weren't able to get him in Devy drafts, right? Because he can't score Division II, so he was a non-factor. There was no use in bidding on him or drafting him or anything like that. How big do you think, or how hard do you think IDP Devy managers are going to go after him now that he's in Division I? Some are going to play the name game and they're going to chase him pretty hard.
Yeah, I think that's going to get. My own opinion is
that's a
unless you're in a
right?
unless you're in a cornerback required league, I'm not going to spend I'm not going to spend the capital needed to get him. He's going to go higher just because of the name value than he really probably should, I think. And he's a cornerback. And on the next level, I think in the next level he's a cornerback. So,
even in position specific leagues where you have to start corners, I just think that position is right. It's really not worth, like you said, putting out what you have to put into him to get him, because that class is just so deep. You can find options everywhere else.
Absolutely. I mean, he's going to go right. He's going to go way higher than I think probably any of us would be willing to take him. So, or he's going to, from an auction perspective, he's going to go for way more money than any of us, just because he was the number 1 overall recruit, and all the hype with Dion and following him, and yeah. I think the guy that spent the return on investment's not going to be there. I don't think, but
awesome. If Chop's still alive, then it's his turn here.
Why would I pass away? It's all good. So I had the Big Ten and the Group of 5, which was we'll get into that, I guess. So there was kind of a mixed bag, I think, for the Big Ten of players that were coming in. Corners were the only Storm Duck going from Carolina to Penn State. I think it's kind of interesting. I believe he's played a little bit there. Davison Igbinosun from Ole Miss to Ohio, or from Ohio State to Ole Miss. No, I switched it. I had it right the first time. Ole Miss to Ohio State. He played a little bit as a true freshman there, so interesting to see him decide to go there. Rest of the corners I added on here had very little, if anything, to know about him. So other than
what about the kid going to Nebraska, Collier?
I don't know. I mean, he's never really done. He was a 4-star recruit. He's got that going for him, and they're turning over half the team, so he's got that going for him. But I don't know. It's corners are worthless. You guys know my feelings on corners. Like,
yeah,
it would be a freaking conversation piece for any kind of league under current settings. So, defensive line, there was a few more. So we Why do I like all of these great names? Tunmais Adelaide, however you say it. One of that great defensive line recruiting class that A&M had, right? Or the year before it, I guess, was a 4-star. He hasn't really played a lot, but he's going to Michigan State. Michigan State got a Dre Butler from Liberty also. And he played a little bit for him. You see kind of a common theme on where these guys are going. It's Michigan State, Indiana.
A lot of Indiana, yeah.
Or probably about Indiana has like a whole new defense coming in, but when you're bad, you probably have to try that stuff. So Jordan Phillips from Tennessee to Maryland. I couldn't find anything on Jordan Phillips. If you got any noteworthy things on him there, Hollywood.
No, I don't have a whole lot other than it was not his turn.
Yeah. Down there a little bit farther, we got 2 more Texas A&M defensive linemen that were 4-star recruits in 2021. Marcus Burns is going to Indiana, and Elijah Judy is going to Nebraska. I'm very like Elijah Judy. They sound pretty excited about him. He's more of a D tackle, so I think someone to keep an eye on there. If you gave up on him after his 2 seasons at A&M, I guess. So, the other Andre Carter that's not in the Army is going from Western Michigan to Indiana. I think he's like 25 years old, so we'll see how he does. But he
might end up being the better Andre Carter.
Yeah, he had a rough outing there. So Michigan got a good get when Josiah Stewart from Coastal Carolina. He's played pretty well for him. It'd be interesting to see what he does up there. Going against some better competition. Then really the last one for me was MJ Sherman. He was a 4-star in 2020. Hadn't done anything for Georgia, but Nebraska gets in. Maybe they got 3 different Georgia players in. I think they got a safety as well too from Georgia, and then they also got the superstar tight end that has never done anything except for transfer.
Mr. Gilbert.
So yeah, so he's up there too, but. Sherman I'm kind of interested to see what he'll do. They need an edge guy, and if the new staff can make something out of him, I think the cupboard's pretty bare there for somebody to step up. So, then all I got for the group of 5, because not a lot went there, and I think some guys to watch are Donnell Harris. These guys are all 4-star recruits. And then they transferred, right? So, Harris went to University of Louisiana, Monroe. So he might not have the NFL upside, but maybe if you need an edge in a flyer in a C2C league, you could probably go for it, Travian Ford from Missouri. He was transferred from Toledo. He was another 4-star recruit. Chambray Jackson went from Florida State to UMass. DJ Harvey from VTech to San Jose State as a defensive back. Kendall Dennis from Oklahoma to South Florida. I just think that these guys all going down to like G5 schools from, being 4-star top recruits. There's probably maybe something to look at their production wise and see if you get something cheap or just keep an eye on. So
I think Harris is probably the most interesting one of the group, I think.
Yeah, it's a lot of them haven't even played or ever seen a football field since high school, I don't think. So
definitely, like you said, guys to at least like put on your watch list or something to see if they pop the first couple weeks, and then maybe you can get some college production out of them at least.
Yep.
So 2 of the names that kind of popped out to me right away. For Justice, he mentioned Rondell Boythorpe, right? Going from Wake Forest to Oklahoma. I don't know that his situation is going to be really better for him. I mean, he was the lead dog, the star there for that defense. I think that's just a case of him wanting to go to somewhere to have a chance to win, right? Plus, with a new head coach there, Venable. I think that's the appeal. Surprised to see him go a little bit because he's got 48 career games. and he's taken 30 and a half TFLs and 16 and a half sacks with him. So for Oklahoma, that's a huge pickup, right? Probably
Right.
instantly him their best pass rusher, I would imagine.
But his stats might not reflect, as well at Oklahoma as they would at Wake Forest, just because Oklahoma's going to rotate a lot more guys. They have a lot more capable bodies than Wake Forest does.
Right, and then the one that Chop had was Josiah Stewart, right? Transferring from Coastal Carolina to Michigan. A little bit of a drop off last year for him, a little bit. And
well, their defense in general was just terrible.
Right, and I think if you're just looking at numbers, that's the thing that dropped was his pass rush numbers, right? Because everything else, for the most part, was right in line. It was just his sacks dropped from 12 and a half. I think going to Michigan, those numbers go back up, right? Because they still have some really good players up there that can produce. So, any worries about him not increasing his? I mean, trending back up with his numbers, or do you think?
Well, he's going to be up against maybe a better measuring stick of competition. So,
yeah.
I mean, who knows? I mean, he might not even just because he was a name worthy at Coastal Carolina doesn't mean he might not. Might not even start at Michigan for all you know. I mean, you see all the time the kids that go from the group of 5 to the Power 5. It's almost like they're a freshman again with the hit rate. As far as who's going to do what. So, but he has to try it too. I mean, I get 100% what Stewart's doing. So
that's a good question, a good segue to what I was kind of leaning at. So, if you're a Josiah Stewart owner, right? If you've got him on your Devy teams or whatever, you've seen the breakout season as a freshman off because maybe their defense wasn't as good. Now he transfers to a better school with better players around him, but as you pointed out, going to face better competition, right? What are you guys doing with him on your fantasy rosters? Is he somebody you're holding to see? Do you think we've seen the best and maybe you're going to try to move on from him? Is he somebody that you're thinking, okay, he had a down year last year, now's a good time to buy low? I mean, where are you all looking?
I mean, I think you got to kind of hold him. I think you hold him unless you got someone like Kyle that loves Michigan. Maybe you try to trade him to Kyle. I don't know. But I think you got to hold him.
Well, there's no, you're not acquiring anything of value for him.
Right.
I mean, just even in like just your basic Devy leagues, you can say, oh, he's going to be in the NFL. You don't know. So, and plus it's kind of a, depending on scoring system, it's a, he's not going to play a position that's going to hit real heavy for value, I guess, so I don't know. He's a holding.
I think I only have one share of him, and I think I did try to trade him to Kyle, but Kyle wasn't interested.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Yeah, I mean, I think you just hold him. I think, another one that like we talked about with Andre Carter. I think he's someone that can carry that production over for Indiana. Just from the simple fact that it's not like Indiana. I mean, you can see they brought in a ton of transfers, right, on the defensive side of the ball. So they don't have a ton of talent on that side. So, maybe at the very least he's going to get opportunity, right? Whereas, like you said, maybe Josiah Stewart, Michigan has more talent, so they're going to rotate more. He's not going to see as many snaps. Whereas I think Andre Carter, his snap count might stay relatively the same just because of the lack of talent at Indiana.
Yeah, I mean, he put up some pretty good numbers for Western Michigan. Very, very comparable to what Boythroyd had. Now, completely two different competition levels. I get it, but
yeah,
28 TFLs, 12 and a half sacks, 5 forced fumbles. Very, very comparable. And their size is not too far off either. I mean, Carter's 6'5", 263, so he's a big guy. So I kind of like him, and like as you said, I think that'll carry over to Indiana. I think that'll help them, and they need that, right? That's a big need for them. So
the one thing I would say about Stewart in the Coastal Carolina games, and I didn't watch a lot last year. Obviously, I watched Old Dominion play them, and like they couldn't stop the run. Like Old Dominion just freaking ran the ball all over them, and so I don't know their team stats, but my guess is if Old Dominion ran all over them, a lot of people ran all over them, and so there just wasn't a lot of opportunity for the pass rush numbers for Stewart.
yeah. Anybody else stand out on either of our lists that you guys want to talk about, mention? Chop is so enthused today.
Huh?
I said you're so enthused today.
I'd like to see what Deuce Chestnut does in the SEC, right? He's someone I think that NFL likes, and I think seeing him in the SEC is only gonna help that, right? Moving over from the ACC.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. Moving from Texas A&M to LSU, I mean, athletically, you're not going to find a much better corner, than him. That young, but clearly had some issues at Texas A&M, and was suspended for the rest of the season. So, but he played 5 games as a true freshman, which is pretty impressive, right? Because not a lot of corners or not a lot of players, period, start as true freshmen
or play at all, really, right?
So to be that talented, that tells a lot about him. Exactly. So that'd be I think LSU. I mean, me and you both. You picked Chestnut and I picked Harris. I think those 2 corners, man, they're going to be. If Brian Kelly and them hits, they're going to be 2 stars for that defense. I think.
Yeah. And LSU was playing really good towards the end of the year, right? With Jaden Daniels, so be interesting to see if they can keep it rolling. I mean, it's kind of prime for them to step up, right? You got Alabama has to break in a new quarterback, new running back. Georgia's got the same thing, a new quarterback. Georgia once again lost a lot on defense. So maybe this is an opportunity for LSU to jump up there and represent the SEC.
Right. I know we're a defensive podcast, but do we know who Alabama's going to be? Is it Milrose or whatever his name is, or
Milroe or Simpson?
Simpson, yeah.
I don't know.
Simpson.
I think. I don't.
Milrose,
I really don't know.
Milrose is who they went to last year. When Young was down, so I think everything they say, it's a true competition head into the spring. So
I think Simpson's probably the better passer. Milrose a better runner, is I think. But
we don't like you. All we've seen with Simpson is his high school tape, right? I mean, he hasn't done anything since then. But yeah, Milroe is definitely more of a dual threat, you would say.
I mean, I think if Milroe wins the job, that's not so great for the Alabama wide receivers. But
yeah, it definitely gives a hit to their value, I would imagine.
And I don't think you can kind of with Tommy Rees coming there, I don't know that you can really say, well, he prefers a certain type of quarterback, right? I mean, traditionally, Notre Dame kind of had more of a a pocket passer, but at least the beginning of last year before he got hurt, they had Tyler Buckner, right? Who's a very mobile quarterback. So I think he's going to mold his offense to the quarterback.
Yeah, as I say, hopefully they're just smart enough that whatever's working, if you got a read option dual threat guy, then that's how you build your offense, right? So,
but I think Alabama they had to replace both the offensive and defensive coordinator, right? And they didn't they didn't really get their first choices, so to speak. So
It probably doesn't matter. Saban's got it all put it out what he wants anyway.
he's just going to have him do whatever he wants to do.
Well, I'm sure he does. I mean, there's very few schools that have more coaching turnover than Alabama from every year. So,
no, you're right. It's kind of like, guys go to Alabama to rehab their career and get a job somewhere else.
Yeah, and Saban's been around long enough. Like they're just implemented what he wants, so it'll be fine.
You think about facility, and just talking about Alabama made me think of this. But I read somewhere talking about football facilities, and they said like Liberty. So I saw someone talked about Liberty and having some of the finest facilities like in all of college football. Which you wouldn't think that they would, right? But I mean, they have a ton of money, so it makes sense to me that they would have awesome facilities. And I also know, like, when they were trying to get in, like they were trying to get into Conference USA or the Sun Belt the last couple of years, and those schools wanted nothing to do with Liberty, and the reason was because they can't. The other schools can't compete with them in terms of the financial and the facilities. So I don't know. I just thought it was interesting,
Right.
and we were talking about Alabama. Made me think about the facilities at Liberty because thinking, well, wow, right? Like if the Liberty facilities are similar to Alabama, that's crazy, right? You wouldn't think that.
Right. Little switch to recruiting here. While y'all were talking about that, looking at the 2024 class, and we can touch on. I wanted to touch on the top 5 according to On3. But before I get to that, the number one, according to them, the number one overall player in the 24 class is Dylan Raiola, right? What you thinking, Chuck? I mean, they've got 47% USC, 28% Nebraska as the leaders for him. What's your thoughts on getting him to be a Husker?
I think he winds
got
up
a real chance.
I think they do. I mean, I don't think that like if they didn't, I don't think he would be like lead them along as much as they have. As far as like, since his uncle works there, they got like he can go to visit family. So Nebraska can technically get some free recruiting trips out of it. But anyway, I think they got a shot, but I think that Georgia is obviously in there. USC, I don't know. I mean, just the fact that would give them like.
Yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense unless he wants to sit.
Yeah, I mean, because they got to. So yeah, I don't know if.
Because he'd have to sit at least a year unless he beat on Malachi Nelson. So
yeah, he'd have to beat him out. Yeah, right away. Otherwise, he would sit a year and then transfer probably or whatever. So I don't know. I think it'll be, and who knows? Maybe Ohio State or somebody's still in the, still in the running too. Or there's always the potential of a silent possibility you don't hear about. So I don't know. It'd be cool if they did. I think it'd be a huge get for the program if they could pull it off. But I'd say it's a long shot.
I don't know. If I was betting, I'd bet on Nebraska. That's who I'd bet money on if I had to bet money today. I mean, I think I saw a graphic recently, like he's got like 5 visits planned this spring, and 2 of them are to Nebraska. So 2 out of 5. So I think it just makes the most sense.
Yeah, the interesting thing here on On3, and I don't know if 24/7 Sports has this or not. I haven't looked, but On3 has a category now of NIL value, and his current NIL value is $804,000. That's his current. Now I don't know how that's tallied up, how they come up with that number, but just looking down through here, that's more than double the next closest. Like I said, I don't know how they determine that number or come up with that value.
I think they're just taking like some algorithm off of like social media followers, I believe. And no, I'm serious. I think that's
recruiting ratings and
because and then so they're kind of saying, just guessing. Oh yeah, this is what this guy could probably be worth, and I'm sure I would think that his NIL will probably be 10 times that by the time he gets to school. So
yeah, he's gonna get that Nico money.
Yep.
yeah, good.
Yeah, so let me go over here now that you say that before I do these 5 real quick. You mentioned Nico, Arch Manning, right? His NI 0.7 million. Dante Moore is 869,000, and Nico is 1.2 million.
Well, Raiola should be more than.
And that's the 3
all of them besides maybe Manning, and Manning just because of his name, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah. And maybe by the time the season ends and they get to where they're actually going, right, maybe that number goes way up. Yeah. I imagine once you declare where you want to go, the deals will really start coming in, especially from like local places and stuff like that. But looking at the top 5 defensive players, and I'm on 3 where I'm at. Their top defensive player, according to them, is KJ Bolden, a safety out of Beaufort County, Georgia. They've got him number 3 overall. He's actually moved up 7 spots for them. He's a 5-star, 27% to Georgia, 17% to Ohio State. I don't know if y'all have been looking at this year's class or not.
Is he related to Bubba Bolden?
Do not know. That's a good question. I'll try to look that up.
Right, he was a defensive back for Miami, right? Maybe he still is. I don't know.
He was. I don't know if he transferred or not. I don't remember. Then they've got Williams Waneri, a 6'6", 250 defensive lineman from Lee Summit North High School in Missouri. He's overall, he failed 5 spots, and they've got him 77% to Oklahoma, 5% to Missouri as the leaders. Then they've got Colin Simmons at number 8, 30 as an edge out of Duncanville High School in Texas, 44% to LSU, 24% to Texas. And then from there, they've got sorry, my screen scrolled on me. Then they've got Edric Houston, 6'3", 255 edge, another one from Beaufort, Georgia. And they've got him 28% to Georgia, 15% to Clemson. So one that I really like who's moving up, and I've watched some of his tape, and I feel like last time I mentioned him I think it was rankings we did for Sal, he's moved 52 spots in their rankings, and that's David Stone from Miami.
Wow.
G Academy, the defensive lineman, 283. He moved from 64 to 52. From 64 to 12 in their rankings, and they've got him 44% to Michigan State and 38% to Oklahoma. So, and then the other one I would mention is Sammy Brown, right? The linebacker from Jefferson. I think he's the best defensive player in the class. But he's made a big jump too. He went from 42 to 13 overall, 6'2", 225, and they have Clemson and Georgia is second with 21%. So just a little look at the recruiting going on for this cycle. I'm sure there's camps and visits and all that stuff going around. And then the season is really where your recruiting ranking jumps up.
So Bubba's at Cleveland now. He's in Cleveland Browns, and I can't find anything that says he's related to KJ. So
we got drafted. While I'm looking this up, spring games are right around the corner, right?
Most of them in April.
Do spring games? Because I've never really dug into that part of it. But do spring games you think have a lot of impact on recruiting for players?
Yeah, it's another opportunity to get them on campus and get them exposure.
Is it
and all
more
that.
like I said? I've never dug into that part of it. Really. Is it more for the player itself, or is it more for the team? Like, hey, we can get Rayola in Nebraska, at the spring game. Which one is it helping more, or does it help them both? I mean, I'm sure it helps them both, but
I think the answer is both. But well, I think a player like Raiola, right? You get him in, and that's going to attract other guys to want to come too. So when you can get those big name guys there, I think that helps.
kind of like the Nico effect, right? You got the big star quarterback. Everything I can see, he is not related to Bubba Bolden that I can find. So.
Yeah, I couldn't find anything either. So,
but yeah, just a little insight to the recruiting. Anything else y'all want to talk about before Chop falls asleep and dies and falls out of his
I might. I hit a wall, I
chair?
think.
I can't. I don't think there's any I can't think of any big news that's happened, at least on a college level, right? I mean, you got some NFL draft stuff that's happened, but nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing huge on the college
quiet.
that I can think of on the defensive side, anyway.
Yeah, it's been a little quiet. So next week we're going to look at we're going to stay in the transfer portal. We're going to do linebackers and safeties. We're staying with the same conferences, correct?
Yep.
Yepper.
Okay. So we'll be doing those. We want to thank Trophy Smack and My Fantasy League and for being our sponsors, Action 24/7. Go check them out if you like those stuff. Get something for your champions. Maybe if you like to gamble a little bit, check out Action. We'll be back next week with linebackers and safeties. Please don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Apple, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, Podbean,
YouTube.
wherever you listen. YouTube, yes, go to our YouTube channel, help us grow there, because that's a big pull for us. The more we can get that to grow, the bigger that we can grow and do some other things. You can at Choppin_KC. You can find Justice at Justice_2318. You can find me at Hollywood Titan, and you can find us at Devy IDP Grind on Twitter. Of course, you can find our stuff on idpnation.com. And then the Patreon, if you're really into Devy stuff, that's where you need to go. Go check out the Patreon. Justice has done some stuff over there. And we are putting the finishing touches on the rankings.
Yep.
That I'm working on. Justice helped me with that. Thanks, man. It looks great. Can't wait to drop those in the coming week. So go check that out. And with that, we are out, and we will be back next week.
See ya.